before going through the testing, I'd like to test I'd like to go through test number 4.5, which is to delete the database file and then start the program. The expected outcome is that the program shouldn't crash, but it should instead create a new empty database file in replacement of the old one. And going back to the files, yeah, the new database file has been created. Yeah, meaning test 4.5 was successful. Now, test 1.1 is to test the function of the start button, and test 1.2 is to test the function of the quit button. The expected outcome for each is that for the start button, it takes the player to the pre-game setup screen, and for the quit button, it will close the Pygame window and terminate the execution of the program. So first I'll test 1.1. So 1.1 was successful as it's taken the user to the pre-game setup, and the quit button, yeah, 1.2 is also successful because the Pygame window has closed and the execution has finished. Test 1.3 is to click around the buttons to test the boundaries, and as I click around these buttons, nothing happens. The boundaries are within acceptable limits. However, one issue I have found is the shape of the parallelograms means that there are small triangle areas within the boundaries that the player can click and it'll still trigger the button, which isn't as much down to the programming and more down to the shape of the image that I used. So moving on, test 2.1 is to test the function of all of the buttons under the title number of rounds, so which are these three buttons here. The expected outcome is that when I click a button, the display box over here updates and shows what the current setting is, and the settings should change. The settings should change to the value on the corresponding button. So it's currently at 1, which is the default. So clicking on 3 and 5 and back to 3, back to 1 means test 2.1 was successful. The values do change correctly. Test 2.2 is to do the same tests with all of the buttons underneath the turns per round title. The expected outcome is that the display box updates the same as the last test, and the clicking on these buttons shows that the display box does change. So test 2.2 is successful. Test 2.3 is to test the function of the back button, which it does work as it's expected. Its expected outcome was to take the player back to the main menu. So test 2.3 was successful. Test 2.4 is to click around the buttons similar to on the menu, just to test the boundaries. And of course, with the parallelogram images, I have the same sort of issue with the menu, but again, that can be changed by and improved by using rectangular buttons instead of parallelograms. Testing these ones down here. Yeah, they shouldn't. Testing the start button as well. Okay, the display button shouldn't actually do anything either. So test 2.4 is successful because the boundaries are correct and within suitable limits. Now, test 2.5 is to test the start button of the start button in the pre-game setup. The expected outcome is that the game should begin and the settings specified should be displayed on the top of the screen to show that the variables have been carried over and are set correctly. So I'll make sure that both of these settings are something other than the default values, just for testing purposes. Clicking on the start button takes us over and we can see that we're on round 1 of 3 and turn 1 of 30, meaning test 2.5 is successful and the variables were carried across correctly. Test 3.1 is upon beginning the game, all the required items are in place and nothing else. And the player should only be able to see the various text information displays on the screen, the background, a few buttons, and the player's hand. So at the minute we can only see these buttons here, the player's hand, and the 4 different text displays here. Well, 6 including the health displays. So 3.1 was successful. Test 3.2 is that during a main phase, click a card that cannot be afforded. At the minute, I cannot afford any of these cards. So I'll click 1. The expected outcome is that the card should not be played or anything. So clicking on these, nothing happens as I cannot afford them. I'll move to the next phase, but I'll have to move past test 3.3 for now and 3.4, so I'll move to 3.5, which is to, during the main phase, click the next phase button. The expected outcome is that the game should progress to the attack phase, which actually I did click and we are in the attack phase now, meaning test 3.5 is successful. Test 3.6 is that I should press the attack phase button again, and it means the AI should be able to begin the turn and play the cards if it can afford them, but it should not attack with them as the cards have summoning sickness for the first turn. Okay, so it couldn't afford any cards, so it didn't play them. Now I can afford a card, so I'll go back to test 3.3. So I'll click a card that can be afforded. Now the expected outcome was that the card should be played, meaning it is removed from the player's hand and a smaller version of the card is displayed on the field, meaning test 3.3 was successful. Test 3.4 is to click the cards that have been played. So I will click during the main phase, I will click the Archer card, because in the main phase, any active player cards shouldn't be able to be interacted with, as the main phase is just for playing cards and not attacking with them. So now I'll click the main phase again. So I'm now in the attack phase, and it actually says for 3.7, during the second turn's attack phase, for the player, use a card to attack the AI's cards, but this turn the AI doesn't yet have cards out, so it can't afford them. So I'll move on to the next. I'll just keep moving along until the AI can afford them. I'll play a card out myself. Move into the attack phase. Okay. Now in the attack phase, if I attack with my archer, it has a health of 3 and a power of 2. So if I use my archer to attack the warrior, I shouldn't actually get damage, because one of the effects of the archer card is that it doesn't take damage from any attacks it does. But it does have 2 power, so the warrior card's health should go down to 2. So if I select the archer card and then I select the computer's warrior card, yeah, the health has gone down to 2, meaning the attack has gone successful, and test 3.7 is successful. For test 3.8, after the first attack I should try using the same card, so I'll click again on it. The expected outcome is that it should not be able to attack until the next turn, as it has summoning sickness. So if I click on the card again, it says down here that the card has summoning sickness in the text output, as proof that the card cannot be used to attack again. So test 3.8 was successful. Test 3.9 is to test attacking the AI's health directly. So actually I'll move so I can attack again, back into the attack phase. I'll select the archer. Okay, that was strange. I think it just tried and attacked that card again, the warrior card. So actually I'm going to find where this is. I think I was looking around here earlier, and I may have placed a bug in here by accident, or somewhere. Then I'm not sure where though. Okay, I'm gonna look in the active computer cards. So equals none. Attack pairs 1 equals none. Okay. Okay, I did manage to find where the bug is. The bug was actually residing in line 561. It was if self.heal pairs 0 does not equal none and self.heal pairs 1 does not equal none. Before the second heal pairs conditional, I accidentally had it set to heal pairs 0, so they were both checking for the same. They were both checking the same index, but setting it to 1 has fixed it. It was somewhat of an odd bug to have, especially given the situation that the game, especially considering the situation that it was running in. Okay, so now I should try going back to test 3.9. Okay, I can afford. Okay. Now, I'll go to the attack phase, select a card, and attack, and it has taken the AI's health down by the power. So now that bug was fixed and 3.9 does work. 3.10 is to test the archer's special effects. So the archer's special effect is that it's a ranged character, meaning its attacks won't deal it damage. So if I select this archer, okay, I'm in the attack phase, so I'll select my archer and then say I'll select this warrior here. I will deal the 2 damage to its health, taking it down to 2 health, but it has 5 power, so it should kill the card, but because it has a ranged ability, it shouldn't take any damage from the attack. So clicking on the warrior, yes, it's taken the warrior's health down to 2, but it hasn't taken damage itself, which means the archer's special effect does work and test 3.10 was successful. Test 3.11 is to test the assassin's special effect. The assassin's special effect is that it has haste, which means it doesn't have summoning sickness on its first turn. So I'll move to the next main phase. I'll play my assassin and then move straight to the attack phase, and I can select it as it says here. If it had summoning sickness, it would have said the card has summoning sickness and it wouldn't have been added to the list. And now, just further proof, I will use it against a card. I use it against this archer here because it should kill the archer, but it should also die itself, which they do, meaning test 3.11 was successful. Test 3.12 is to test a blocker's special effect. So I'll move to the next phase so I can play a card. So I will drop a blocker down and also a warrior. So while a blocker is up, the AI should not be able to attack the player's health at all. So it's currently at 29, but it should increase by the next turn. So the only card that it has to attack with is has a power of 5, and I know that the power of 5 is more than what it would increase by next turn. So if the warrior does in fact attack the player's health, which it shouldn't, but if it does attack the player's health, it will have decreased by the next turn. But I shall now try. Okay, so as it's increased, it's proof that the warrior was not able to attack. The player's health, meaning test 3.12 was successful as the blocker special effect did work. Now, test 3.1 is to test 3.13, sorry, is to test the mage's special effect. The mage's special effect, if I play it, I'll also play a wall alongside it to test it with and move to the next turn, if I can. Unfortunately, I can't, as the AI was able to kill it, but I will try and get mages out and some other cards in order to play them. Okay. Mages cannot heal each other, but now I'll go to the attack phase. But I can use now, I'll select this mage here. Oh, okay. Line 550 now. Okay. It says non-type object has no attributes health, which means it is trying to heal a card that isn't there. It isn't in the list. So actually, if I have a look, why this is. I mean, I hadn't selected the second card, so it could be. There we go. That made a similar issue to before, where it's accidentally looking for the same card. So because I only had one card in there, but it was checking the same card for both conditions, it triggered the effect when it shouldn't have, which is what I assume has happened. But switching that to the correct value, switching it to the correct index now means it shouldn't do that. So essentially just having one card triggered itself. But hopefully if I play a couple cards out now. Okay. If I go into my attack phase now, if I select a mage, and now I select, say, this archer, the archer should have its health increased by 3, but it hasn't. Oh wait, sorry, yes it has. Wait, actually it's increased both of their healths by 3. So now I've got to check this again. It could have just been a simple bug. Okay. Actually, I'm not sure what caused the issue. Or actually, if it was an issue. So now I'll try again and see what happens. Yeah. So in the attack phase, I'll select a mage, and then I'll select the archer. Its health should increase to 5. Oh, it has done it that time. Actually, I'm not quite sure why it did that. Yeah, I'm not sure why it acted strangely, but that will. Yeah. I'm not sure why, but I'll look into it. But moving on, I'll move to test 3.1, 3.14, and I'll just play through all of the turns in a single round, and the expected outcome is that the game area should reset and the game should move to the next round if set to multiple rounds in the pre-game setup. However, I'm on round 1, so I'll actually go back. I'll set it onto 3 rounds, and I'm just going to keep going through to the final past the final round. Okay, right, it's moved on to round 2, turn 1. So test 3.14 was successful, as after the maximum number of turns was played, it's moved on to the second round and restarted the game. However, one thing I've just noticed is that the cards continue until they will, by the looks of it, continue on and on and on. So I should probably set a limit, and I'll add that as a note now. I'll add that as a note to the testing. Okay, so test 3.15. I'll click the back button during gameplay. The expected outcome is that when backing out of a game, it should take the player to the post-game conclusion, and then they can go back to the pre-game setup when starting the game. It should be a new game that has all of the values reset. So it does send me to the conclusion screen, the post-game conclusion, and as the AI won one of the rounds and then I quit after winning one, I have lost. Which actually I believe does show yeah, I believe the post-game conclusion, yeah, it is supposed to either display that if the player drew, won, or lost, which it does do that, so that is successful. So 3.16, it does go to the post-game conclusion, but back to 3.15, I'll now go back to this test. These values will stay the same, so in case the user wants to play another game like that. But going to start the game, it is a new, fresh game. All of the values here reset back to their basics, and the player has a new hand. So with test 3.1, 3.15 and 3.16 done and successful, I'll move on to 4.1. This was part of the extended objectives, and I'd only just started it before I decided to move on to do the documentation and to stop development of the actual program. But 3.14, the test is to click on the different text input boxes, and the expected outcome is that the text input box should switch to a lighter color to show that it is selected, and then when another text input is selected, the color should revert to its original color, to its original shade, sorry. So selecting the first name input, it does come to a lighter shade, and then selecting the second name, the shade switches to show which one is selected. So 4.1 is successful. Testing 4.2, when each text box is selected, type some text in. The text typed should be displayed, and if the user presses the backspace, the entire text box is deleted, or at least all of the text inside of the box is deleted. So I'll put my name, and it will type correctly. Switch here, I can put my second name. And now testing the backspace for the test 4.2, it does reset the value of the text input, which means 4.2 is a successful test. 4.3, with text inputs being empty, press submit. Now, of course, this is saying button was pressed with the action send data, but if I check the database, so I'll actually open the database now. Sorry, let me just find it. Okay. Sorry. Let me just try and open this. Okay, there we go. Looking at browsing the data, I have clicked send data, but nothing has been sent through. And that's because as a part of the program, if both of these values are set to none, so if both of these text inputs have nothing in them, it doesn't send any data, so nothing gets committed to the database. So test 4.3 was successful. Test 4.4 is with text in the inputs to click submit. So I'll type my name, my first and second name, as data has to be in both boxes for it to submit the data. And actually, down in the output wind terminal, it does show the different pieces of data that it has sent through, and that this is now one of the entries that it has committed. Checking the database, yeah, I'll refresh it. It is now shown that, yeah, my names and the data has been sent through correctly. And moving on to test 4.5 is that I should send, now that I've created a database entry, I should do it again. This time I'll just let the AI win. I'll do the same. It looks like I'll have to hang on, sorry, that was, I'm not sure. I think the AI actually ran out of cards then. Which actually, that's probably something that I can fix just by increasing the quantity of cards that are applied to the core deck. Actually, I should fix that now. I'll fix that. Actually, yeah. So you know what, I'll just actually double the amount of cards that get appended to the core decks, because that shows that there weren't enough cards, so the AI ran out of them, so the game just halted, which isn't something you want to happen. Okay, now I'll restart the game. The data should, of course, still be in the database, so I'll start another one, let the AI win. Okay, I've lost this time, so I'll type the same name in, James Price, and I'll submit the data. Okay, now I'll check my database, refresh it. Okay, that's strange. It seems that there is there's now actually an issue with the data handling. So actually I'll have to find that now. To open the, okay, yeah, Okay. Data. Let's check here. So losses equal to okay. I'm not actually quite sure why that doesn't send. I'm not actually sure why that doesn't send through correctly and why it doesn't get added on to the score. So I'll have to say test 4.5 is a fail. Anyway, that is the end of the testing.